Well, I guess that's a good segue into the podcast. So Heidi, welcome to Hello Momma.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you and to see you because it's been
years.
a long time. We were just talking about it. The last time I think we spent time together was at my birthday during the 2020 election that I celebrated at the Ferris Wheelers, and we were watching the election go down.
That was a crazy moment.
It was a crazy moment.
We all had to be intoxicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of alcohol flowing for sure. And here we are again after a few years. And you guys were on my podcast, the previous podcast that I had, Date and Debate, to talk about how you guys met and how your relationship has evolved throughout the years. And here you are again to talk about women's health a little bit.
And I'm so excited because this is the first time I've ever spoken like in depth with someone about my experience with endometriosis. And it kind of all like came together because I just started posting about it maybe 6 months ago online.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was diagnosed because I was posting, and then just a random girl that follows me. She said she went to the hospital, and she kept telling, she went to the ER, and she kept telling the doctors, I think I have endometriosis, and they ended up like checking her and doing a little laparoscopic surgery, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 endo.
Oh my God.
So that kind of like inspired me. I'm like, okay, well maybe I should speak about my experiences, more often online. So it was just crazy that you're like, hey, do you want to come and talk to me about this? I'm like, yeah okay.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm honored that I'm like your first podcast to talk about endometriosis. So why don't we just dive right in and start? Because I know a little bit about it. I fortunately don't have any issues in that area. But I do have a lot of friends that have been diagnosed. Yeah. But the common thread that I hear is it takes a lot to get diagnosed. And it takes a lot of like knocking on the right doors and having the right doctors that listen to you. I kind of touched on it on one of my episodes of last season. And it was kind of like the same thing. Like women have to kind of like advocate for themselves to get diagnosed for this. And it shouldn't be the case. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit to where it all started for you.
So I am the youngest of 4 daughters in my family. So I, kind of saw periods happening before, when I was really young. And I didn't, even before I knew like what a period was, I was like 6, but I knew that like my older sisters, like once a month would be like really grouchy and in a lot of pain. And, I knew that they bled. Right. We all shared a bathroom. So that was like no secret. Yeah. So I was familiar with, what a period was. But then as I got a little bit older and was just kind of more aware, I knew like my older sister, Elizabeth, so she's the one that's right above me. She in particularly had like horrific periods, like every single month. We had this blue recliner, and she would be like curled up on the recliner, like crying, throwing up, just like praying to God to like take the pain away. Like it actually, like we were talking about it the other day, and it breaks my heart. Like it really does for like her. She was like, 13.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I remember my mom when I started my period as well, she took me, but I remember my mom took her to the doctor, and he was just like, some girls just have bad periods and we don't know why. And he was compassionate about it, but that was literally the explanation that was given to, this 13, 14-year-old little girl who's just like
deal with it.
Yeah, who is vomiting every month and passing out and dizzy. And so I started my period very young. I was 9. And so I had my first period, and I was like freaked out by, you're a baby. And my mom hadn't really like had that in-depth conversation because I was so young. She was like waiting until I was like 11. Right. And so I had my first period. And then by the time I was 10, I actually like started having regular cycles. And I would say, people ask me when I first started having symptoms, I would say within 3 to 6 months of me having my periods. Oh, really? Now that I like look back and realize, what those symptoms were in my body that were happening to me. And so I had such like being in pain was so normalized that I was just like, okay, this is just how it is. And then by the time I was 15, my cycles were so bad. Because at that point, it's been 5 years since I've been having my period, right? And my periods were so bad that they would just debilitate me. And it was just very normalized. And I just thought that that's how periods were supposed to be, because all of my sisters had bad periods. My mother had bad periods. My grandmother had bad periods. She would tell a story. She was like, yeah, we would get, the hot iron, and we would like put a pad over us and then put the hot iron on our stomachs. Like, and just like that was normal, right?
No.
And it just so much normalization of pain around periods. Yeah. So it was just one of those things. I was like, okay, I have to deal with this. And I couldn't run, and I was so tired all of the time. And again, just looking back at my little self, I'm like, it breaks my heart, because it was so unfair for me to deal with that.
Yeah.
And of course, doctors' first initial response was to put us on birth control. Mm-hmm. And my parents were very against that. So we chose not to do that. And then as I turned 18 and got my first boyfriend, I became sexually active. That was when everything really started to come together for me, because pain with sex was excruciating. I was just having pain after sex. I was having these UTIs, right, mm-hmm. that were undetected, but I was having UTI symptoms. And not knowing all of these things were just clear signs of, stage 4 endometriosis.
Goodness.
And so my boyfriend's mom was like, you really need to go to a doctor.
Yeah.
And really tell them, figure out what's wrong with me. So I was 19. I went to a doctor, and she was like, what are your cycles like? And at the time I was like, well, they last about 10 days.
Were they very heavy?
Yes.
Because that's sorry to interrupt, but there's I have a close friend of mine who just recently had a baby. But after many, many tries, lots of rounds of IVF, and one of the things that she said during her endometriosis was that she would bleed through the pads. Yes. She was like, it's impossible to get out of bed.
Yes.
I can put on a pad and a tampon, and I will bleed through both of those.
Yes.
And I'm like, my goodness, that sounds horrible. I've had, throughout the years, there's cycles where I might get a little cramping, I might get a little soreness, and they might be a little heavy, but nothing to that extent. Yeah. I remember, and even I think women sometimes we don't understand it either. If we're not experiencing it, right. And I hear someone saying oh my God, I have cramps, I can't come to work. I'm like, okay, suck it up, take a Midol. Yes. You know what I mean? Because it's since I'm not experiencing it and there's no information about this, you really just don't get it.
Right.
And it's not until you start hearing people that are close to you talk about this, you're like, oh, wait a second. So this is a thing. Just because it's not happening to me doesn't mean that everybody's cycle is the same. And when people are saying that they're cramping and they can't move, it's genuinely that real.
I actually can't move.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you brought up the work thing, because I have always, I had my first job when I was 13. I was being paid $4 under the table to wash dishes. I've always wanted to work. I've always been very motivated. I wanted to make money. Mm-hmm. And I got my first on paper job when I was 16. And I just remember my bosses being so unforgiving. And so what I would do to compensate that is I would be so impeccable at my job, and I would show up early, and I would just be the best employee.
Just to prepare for those days.
Yes, just to prove to them that I was a worthy employee, so that perhaps that they would be a little kinder on the days I would call in. Mm-hmm. And it actually never worked out for me that way, because they expected more of me.
Right. Yeah. Kind of backfired.
Right. And so that was definitely my experience as well. And also I was homeschooled, so I wasn't around a lot of other girls, and I would see these other girls running, just playing, being normal young girls. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, there's something wrong with me. How do they do that? And I would be so hard on myself, thinking that I wasn't strong enough, to be able to fight through this. And so, there's definitely that aspect of it where people just don't really get it, because if you're not experiencing it,
it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
It's an invisible illness.
Yeah.
And if you have an invisible illness, if you have a chronic illness, it's hard for people to understand if they haven't been around someone that's experienced that or experienced it themselves.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're talking about this, because the next guest I have in a couple weeks, we're going to be talking about menopause and perimenopause. And it's kind of the same thing. There's all these symptoms that it's like, oh, it's normal. It's normal. It's normal.
Yeah.
It's like, no, none of this is normal. And I was listening to a podcast where this OB, she went to school to be a gynecologist, and she's like, we have one class on menopause and that's it.
Yeah.
So most of the men in the medical industry that are gynecologists are mostly men.
Yeah.
So if they're not experiencing it and they don't learn it at school, why would they even
it's not on their
question?
radar.
It's on their radar. Not their fault.
Right.
They're not living it. So they have
Right.
no idea. And until like women start like really like, wait a second, this is not normal. This is coming up a lot more than it should be. And it takes women to like I said, advocate and do their
Right.
research and start like poking around and being like, let me do some digging here because none
Yeah.
of this is okay. And it's interesting that now all these topics are now becoming a little more normalized, as
Yeah.
you said, but still not enough.
It's so
still,
under-researched. It's so understudied. And it took like a privately funded team of doctors. And it's only been the past like 5 to 10 years, but really the past 5 years that we've like been getting a voice in the medical industry, in the medical field rather, for endometriosis. And, you know, I'm so grateful to those doctors because they dedicate their lives to this. The ones who are really treating it and treating it properly are the most compassionate and passionate people you will ever meet in the medical field because they see it. They do the surgeries. They see, you know, the encasement of people's organs and the devastation. And it is often just thought of as a chronic illness, but it is also life-threatening.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that.
Yes, it is.
In what
absolutely.
capacity? Like what are the...
The biggest one, so there's a form of endometriosis that's called thoracic endometriosis, and that's where endometriosis grows on your lungs. I have it because I'm at stage 4 again. And it can cause, when you're having your cycle, your lungs are essentially collapsing a little bit every single period because the implants of endometriosis bleed every single time you have a period. So you're bleeding internally. And so what can happen is if it becomes, I know a girl personally that this happened to. She had like a full lung collapse and, you know, had to have an emergency surgery. So it is life-threatening.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, they're comparing it. There's a new study that came out very recently, and they're not like saying that it's cancer-like, but it's similar to, you know, whereas cancer goes and it like takes over the cells of organs, endometriosis kind of encases them and takes over them from like almost from the inside out. So it is very life-threatening.
That's very scary.
Yeah.
And okay, so we'll get into that a little bit more in a
Yes.
second, but let's go back to like where you were talking about like when you were 15 and you were seeing all these girls kind of
Yes.
running around, and that how after that leading up to now, kind of like what was the diagnoses process?
Right. So I was 19 and I just got really, really lucky. I really did. And I recognized that. I went to this female doctor. She was not an OBGYN. She was, did family practice. And so I just sat down with her and I was like, I have a lot of pain. And the way I described it to her, I was like, I feel like my like insides are going to fall out of my vagina. That's like the only way I knew how to explain it. And I was like, I'm having so much pain on my right side. And she was like, well, how are your periods? And I was like, well, they used to be like 2 weeks, but now they're only 10 days. And she was like, you know, with the look on her face. And she was like, you know, how are these making you feel? And I just started bawling because no one had ever really asked me that. And I was like, I'm just in so much pain and I don't know why. And I'm so tired. And she was like, we're going to do a laparoscopic procedure. We're going to go in through your belly button and we're going to take a look at your insides and see what's going on. She's like, it's just going to be like a 45-minute surgery. And I was so scared because I'd never had surgery before. And she went in. That surgery was not 45 minutes. It was 7 hours. And they found, so my appendix was not floating. It was attached to my ovaries, my fallopian tubes and uterus, and ovaries were all bound together on my right side. And then it was just all over my body. It was in like my rectal area, wrapped around the outside of like my vaginal canal, which is the reason why there was so much pain with sex. And when I woke up, she was like, she came in and she held my hand and she said, I don't know how you were even walking. And it makes me want to cry when I think about it, because it was the first time that someone like acknowledged my pain and said that there's a reason and did something. And she was like, you have endometriosis. And it was the first time I'd ever heard that word. I didn't know what it meant. And I was like, okay. And there was really no like after treatment plan. She suggested that I get on birth control, and I tried it. It didn't make me feel good. And so I just didn't take it. And endometriosis causes infertility. So I wasn't, really worried about getting pregnant. So I was just like, I'm not going to take it. And I did get a lot of relief for about 3 to 4 years, maybe.
Okay.
And then probably around 23, 24, my symptoms just started up again. And just excruciating pain. I remember I was working this boat show. My friend Brooke had invited me to work this boat show, and I was standing there and I was having just an out-of-body experience because, like your friend said, I was literally like wearing a tampon and, this big pad and like making sure I had 2 pairs of underwear on, and I was just bleeding through everything. And I literally was like, I told her, I was like, I have to leave. And I didn't give her any explanation. I went back later. Actually, this was like 6 months ago. I went back and like explained to her what I was dealing with. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She's like, I just thought you were kind of weird, like I didn't know what was happening. Yeah. But I just left because I knew that I could not work like that another day. Like it was a 2-day show. And I was just like, I have to go home and lay down. And so that honestly, like I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but just not having to work for someone and not being, held accountable to be at work certain days is honestly what inspired me to work for myself, because I didn't have any other option. I felt like I was like, I have to.
And it shouldn't be the case.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't, of course you're very successful, which is awesome. At the same time, there's just like no care for women. There's no compassion. And same goes for like maternity leave. Like you have to have to land at the right company that gives generous maternity leave. Luckily I work for a company that's very generous, but still it's not that much, like I get 16 weeks off and it's still not enough. That's when the baby's starting to need you for real. Cause all they do is eat and sleep. Right. And so it's just insane. And the fact that I think it's in Spain, and I can fact check this, but I think they give time off for periods. Like if you for
in Japan
cramping
as well.
Yeah.
And actually Portugal just passed a law specifically recognizing women with endometriosis who've been diagnosed, and they give them an allotted amount of days to take off for endometriosis pain. So there is a little bit of progress, but unfortunately it's all happening outside of the U.S. Yeah. A lot of the advocacy groups are, in Brazil or in Europe or in these other countries. Australia is a big one. They actually have the Endo Summit down there in Australia. So there is recognition starting to happen, which is giving, me and all the other women who are, facing, these symptoms, hope. But it just takes time, unfortunately. Yeah. There's not like a magic switch and, legislative bills being passed that will, allow us, or anyone with chronic pain, honestly, the ability to take off work and be able to just maneuver life or work from home even,
Absolutely.
Going into the office every day would just be impossible for me at this point in my life.
Yeah. No, that's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So you get diagnosed, you get your surgery, symptoms come back after a few years.
Right.
Then what?
So the idea that I had endometriosis was in my mind, but I just kind of forgot about it, if I'm being honest. Like I knew I was diagnosed with it, but I didn't even know what that means. Like there was no pamphlet that was given to me that's like how to deal with endometriosis.
Yeah.
And I met my now partner, and I remember the first time like he was around me when I had my period, he was like, what is going on? He's like, I've never experienced this with a female before. And he's obviously a very compassionate person, but he was like, is this like normal? Like, have you like talked to your mom about this? Like, and I was like, yeah, this is good. He was just so confused because he'd never seen someone in that level of pain.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is just kind of normal. And then, 2018, I hit a wall. So I would say probably 23, 24 is when I started experiencing symptoms really bad again. But in 2018, I hit a wall, and my body just started shutting down, and I was having like hives, and my face was breaking out in rashes, and like my face was swollen, and I was I could show you photos. It was unrecognizable. And then I was diagnosed with candida overgrowth, and I was being diagnosed with these chronic UTI symptoms, but nobody knew why. I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. I was having these unexplained shoulder pains and chest pains, and all of these back pain, all of these crazy symptoms. It became debilitating.
Yeah.
Worse than it had ever been before. And so I kind of went back to the basics, and I was like, okay, so I think, maybe these symptoms are being caused by my endometriosis. And I just started researching on the internet, and thank God for like the girlies who post about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because every single solution when it came to diet, when it came to movement, when it comes to like doctors that I've seen, have literally all been in TikTok, like the comments of TikTok and Instagram.
I will say when I was going, same thing for motherhood, like Reddit.
Yes.
Reddit and TikTok are sometimes like way more reliable than any other information, because it's real life people talking about their experience and sharing it.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, of course you can't rely on these things for everything, but there are things you can, when people are talking about their experiences and they're putting it out there, it's real,
so validating,
and it's so valid, and it's validating. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, oh, this is a thing. Okay, good.
Okay,
I'm not losing my mind. Yeah.
Yes. So, I found out that the first thing I found out was like that I probably had spinal endometriosis, right? So that's what causes your back pain.
Mm-hmm.
I had some ultrasounds done, transvaginal ultrasound, as well as like, just a traditional stomach ultrasound. They found, all these chocolate cysts, and they're like, we can't see a lot, but this is what we can see. And like, then I had like a CAT scan done on my back, and they're like, well, this looks weird, but we don't know what this is. Again, these doctors are educated, but they're not educated in endometriosis. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I just started, getting the pieces gathered and like kind of putting the puzzle together. And so within my research online, I finally started finding doctors. And this was even more recently, like since 2020, I started finding these doctors. But in 2018, I wiped everything from my diet. Mm-hmm. I was vegetarian at the time. I started eating the most bland food you've ever heard of, like no seasoning, nothing, no hot sauce, which I love, like no, like pico, nothing. Yeah. So I stripped my diet, and I just started with the basics, like simple avocado, just like very slowly started adding things into my diet. I lost a ton of weight because I couldn't really eat, was not my plan. That's not what I wanted to do. But I slowly began to like rehab my body through diet, and diet is not a cure. And I am also not a fan of like the idea that an inflammatory diet will fix your body. That's not how inflammation like works scientifically. It will help, but it will not fix you. So I don't want to say that like an anti-inflammatory diet like healed me, but it definitely started me on that journey of just feeling better.
Did you start identifying like certain foods maybe would trigger certain things?
I have a list on my phone. Okay. Like detailed list. Okay, Starbucks grilled cheese, can't eat that. So I just started keeping a food diary. Yeah. And I would encourage anyone with endometriosis to do this, because foods trigger flare-ups. It's the biggest like reason why and cause of flare-ups, reason why you have flare-ups. So I started just figuring out what made me feel worse, and I eliminated it, and that helped me. And then, you know, as the years went on and I started doing more research, I, you know, found out about thoracic endometriosis. I found out about the reason why these imaginary UTIs that were not showing up are caused by endometriosis. So I just started, you know, putting this puzzle together of like things that were causing my symptoms. And over the past 2 years, and yes, it's been 2 full years of me searching for a doctor who can do surgery. So that is my next step. And there are 2 types of surgeries that treat endometriosis. There's ablative surgery where they go in with a laser and they remove it. It's a burning process. I do not recommend. I did have another surgery I forgot to mention. So I had a surgery when I was 23. They went in and removed an ovarian cyst because I have cysts as well. And they tried to remove some endometriosis while they were in there. And it actually ended up causing more pain, which I think is, I'm not saying it's the reason why, but it definitely added on to just the inflammation, because the ablative surgery where they remove it by burning just causes scar tissue, which causes more inflammation.
Yeah.
So there's a secondary option, and it's called excision surgery. So what they've found during the research of endometriosis is there are actual like implants of where this kind of spreading starts. So endometriosis is not the lining of the uterus. That is a misconception, but it is, it's tissue that mimics the lining of the uterus, and it grows outside of the uterus. There's also something called, and I'll probably mispronounce this, I think it's idomyosis or endomyosis.
Okay.
It kind of falls under the umbrella of endometriosis, but it's different. It grows like inside of your uterus.
Okay.
Like in the walls of your uterus. But that's also something you have to look out for when you're experiencing pain, because that's a big cause of infertility.
Okay.
So it is under the endometriosis umbrella.
There's so much stuff that goes on our body. Like, why? Why can't we just like chill and not have to do all this research ourselves?
It's so exhausting, girl. I'm like, So where was I?
Oh, so you had found out about this, not endometriosis, but the other one.
So the implants.
Yes.
So they found out that these implants happen, and that's where the spreading kind of starts, and they just grow bigger and bigger every single cycle that you have. You're internally bleeding essentially. And so they found out that you go and remove the actual implant as well as all of the, you know, tissue that has spread, that they have a higher success rate of you having symptoms, like no symptoms for a longer period of time, and like a longer, because this is not curable.
Okay. Yeah.
Right,
that was
now.
Gonna be my next question. So
this
it'll kind of like grow back.
It will always grow back. Yeah. And getting pregnant does not fix it.
Yeah.
Going into menopause does not fix this. So they treated it for so long like a reproductive disease. I hate the word disease, illness, a reproductive illness, but it is a full body illness. It involves every single organ in your body. They found endometriosis in people's eyes. They found endometriosis in people's brains. They found it in pubescent girls.
Wow.
Before they even start their period. So I think that if it were happening to men, this would already be like so well researched. Oh yeah,
it would have been the cure would be available.
They would have like some vaccine.
Seriously. So there's really no treatment aside from surgery.
Surgery
and
yes,
like you said, like diet, or
correct.
Is there like hormone potential?
So there's pelvic floor therapy. There's so many avenues, and a lot of them I haven't explored. I'm actually planning on starting pelvic floor therapy next year, or next month rather, because
I had someone on my podcast talking about pelvic floor. You should probably listen to that episode.
To talk to her.
Yeah, I'll send you the info.
Please do. Yes, because it's just, so there's so many aspects that symptoms and just like things that cause pain when it comes to endometriosis. I mean, when someone tells me that they have pain inserting a tampon during their period, I'm like, red flag. I'm like, have you been checked for endometriosis? Like, I'm very passionate about it because it just causes your entire body to like contract and you're just so tense all the time. So I did a post about like post flare up treatments that I do. But I think a lot of that would involve pelvic floor therapy. A lot of girls in the comments, they do acupuncture, just staying away from cold food. I don't eat anything cold. My water's room temperature. No, if I eat something cold, it doesn't always cause a flare up, but it makes me feel some type of way. It doesn't make me feel good. So all of these things are just little, things that I do to just try to feel better.
In your research, have you discovered, I think one of the reasons why it's hard to get diagnosed is because, again, it's not really talked about. People are not really educated on it. But now that you've been researching it for a few years, I feel like it's still, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like even with my OB, I remember touching on that topic once. I don't even remember why I touched it, but she was like, "Oh, yeah, like those are things that we don't even check for. Like you'll check,
they don't,
and it shouldn't be the case.
They don't. You have to beg to get
and that's
checked for
unfortunate.
endometriosis.
So what have you in your research kind of like discovered maybe why it's so, aside from them like not having the knowledge, but those that do?
Yes. So if I would encourage anyone who's having, I will reiterate, if you're bleeding heavy on your periods, it's not normal. If you're having pain with sex, it's not normal. If your vagina hurts, it's not normal. If you are having severe fatigue, especially during your ovulation period, it's not normal. If you have pain during your ovulation period, it's not normal. None of these things are normal. And if you are experiencing these symptoms, you can go online and specifically search for OBGYNs who treat endometriosis. And I would suggest going to them. It's better to find out that you don't have it than to have a doctor gaslight you and tell you, you're fine, take some birth control. Because birth control, while it may lessen some people's symptoms, it doesn't take away from the seriousness of it. I have a friend who had no pain,
just looking at the time.
Okay. Who had no pain, no real symptoms. She'd been on birth control all of her life, but it was causing her to be infertile. And she went in, had stage 4 endometriosis, was able to get pregnant successfully through IVF, and, her and her wife had a baby. But again, everyone's experience with endometriosis is different. You could have stage 1 and be in excruciating pain, or you could have stage 4 and not really experience any of it. But at the end of the day, it needs to be treated. Yeah. Regardless, it doesn't matter if you're having the worst symptoms or no symptoms at all. This is still a serious disease that needs to be treated because, again, it is life-threatening.
Yeah. Well, now you're like explaining all the how it can spread and how it can affect other areas of your body. Right. Is, again, I had no idea about that. And I can assure you, half the women that are even experiencing endometriosis and know that they've already been diagnosed probably don't know the severity and how bad it can really get. Right.
Again, I didn't. I was diagnosed 15 years ago. And I had no idea, when they told me this crazy sounding, I'm like, what is endo? What? Like, what do I have? Right. So even after I was diagnosed, I felt a little better. I'm like, okay, I had the surgery. I still didn't dive in and do research. And it was only through the help of other women. I've read so many books about women who have experienced this or doctors who treat it. And again, the comment sections and TikTok and Instagram videos, like all of that is really, I do appreciate doctors and I will always rely on them to come up with solutions, medical solutions. And obviously they go to school for this, but nothing will ever replace the woman experiencing this disease, and nothing will ever replace her experience. So I'm very passionate about speaking out about it. I'm very passionate about advocating for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm writing a book about my experience, because if I can help one woman get relief, that's worth it to me.
Do you know if like endometriosis can be something that can develop later in life, or is it typically something based on, like, again, I know
a lot of women. So if I would have maybe started my period at like a normal time in my life, so maybe if I would have started my period at, you know, 14, my symptoms might not have developed until later in life. But most usually what happens is these girls are having bad periods. They think it's normal. They're on birth control. Maybe their periods are less. You know, a lot of girls in the comment sections on like my little Instagram friends, they've spoken about how, is it the Mirena? Yeah. Yeah. So they said that that's helped them, right? Especially with the heavy bleeding and just being able to like have a normal life. And there's whatever you need to do it, girl. Yeah. Like whatever you need to do to feel relief, do it. But again, it's not a cure.
It's just, it's like all these things you're talking about.
It's a Band-Aid.
They're Band-Aids.
It's a Band-Aid. And
or management.
Right. Pain management. Right. Which again, whatever you have to do to feel better.
Totally.
But it's not a cure. And what happens to a lot of women is they want to start a family, and they start that process and they're infertile. They can't get pregnant. They're miscarrying. You know, I've had multiple miscarriages. Okay. And so, you know, our bodies are under so much stress that they can't hold a pregnancy, you know, and, you know, our bodies oftentimes look at it as a threat. So we miscarry. So that's usually when women start trying to find answers. And, I mean, there's been doctors who talk about doing C-sections and opening up a woman, and she's just full of endometriosis.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I mean, it's just, again, such an undertreated, understudied disease. And I just think that we have to keep raising awareness, keep advocating for ourselves, advocating for other women, and, you know, finding a solution to this, because there has to be a solution.
There definitely has. If you don't mind, we have still a few minutes left.
Yes.
And I would love to kind of touch on like the infertility piece, and if you don't mind talking about a little bit about your miscarriages.
Yeah.
And also, again, your relationship. How has that impacted your relationship? What does your partner, how does he support you during all this? So if you don't mind talking a little bit about that.
So if your partner is not supportive and kind, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Kick him to the curb.
Dump his ass.
Dump him, girl. There are more.
Yeah.
No, having a supportive partner is the most important thing when you are navigating life with endometriosis. I mean, he's wonderful. Like every Christmas gift that he gives me, like, you know, he likes to give me like a lot of little gifts. And so he will find something related to like period care. I think 2 years ago, he got me this giant heating pad that like wraps around my body. But if I'm having a flare up, he will get on the floor with me and like just help me stretch my body, because stretching is really helpful when trying to like loosen up your body and get some type of relief. But I mean, he is just kind and caring. Like when I'm on my period, he's like brings me food in bed. He's like, what do you need? You know, that, and I am forever grateful for him. I feel very lucky to have a partner who treats me the way he does, and it makes a world of difference, right?
Yeah.
But it is difficult, you know. I have a lot of anxiety. We were actually scheduled to
a couple weeks ago.
We were scheduled to have a podcast, you know, do this together, and I couldn't do it. You know, my period started at a weird time and I couldn't do it, you know. So there's a lot of anxiety and I have to plan my life around my period. And even when I do that, maybe I'll have a flare up and I'm just in pain and it's too much.
Yeah.
And I've been able to manage those symptoms a little bit. And I have like little life hacks. Get you some Gas X, girls. It's like changes your life. Get you some enzyme pills. There's little like, the little stick on like for period pain, I have them in my purse. Like, you got to stay ready. I have like a little emergency kit, especially when I travel. But yeah, I mean, it does affect your relationship. And if you are with someone who isn't compassionate and understanding, I can see how it would be. And even for people who are caring and compassionate, it can be difficult, I mean, I've given my husband an out before. I'm like, you don't have to stay through this. Yeah. And of course he was like, I'm not going anywhere. But it can be very difficult. And especially like women who experience, or don't know, maybe they don't know they have endometriosis and are experiencing so much pain with sex. That can be so frustrating because you're like, what is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? Yeah. And I'm sure it can be like, very making your partner feel very sad also because they don't understand, right? So there's just a lot of layers. And I think staying educated is really important. And also just knowing there's just certain times of the month when I feel better. I'm in my follicular phase. I feel great. I feel energized. So I know, like this is the time of the month where we can do a lot and we can, go on dates, and then there are other weeks I can't. Yeah. And that's just how you have, I am such a spontaneous person and I like spontaneity, but you have to plan your life a little bit, when dealing with this, and it can be hard. And I have a lot of compassion for any partner who is willing to help you navigate that. I mean, you guys are like our little angels, right?
Yeah, supportive partners are the best.
Yes, yeah.
Definitely needed. And, when it comes to like planning for like a family, was this a conversation that you guys had early on in the relationship where you were like, hey, this might not be possible, or it might be really difficult for it to happen?
It's super interesting because when I was very young, I always thought I would be like 40 and I would adopt kids. And I never had that like instinctual like desire to be pregnant and experience motherhood in that way. Yeah. And then it's bizarre that I have all these infertility issues and that like that was never something that I wanted. And I'm not taking, I know there's so many women who want children and who do want to experience that, but my personal journey, once I started experiencing all of these issues, I'm not willing to put my body through that. Yeah. I'm not willing to take the risk, and I'm 34. So I'm not, young anymore. So there are so many things that could go wrong that it's not worth it to me.
Yeah, totally.
So if I did, and I've had a miscarriage recently, and it's not that we've been planning for it, but, I've experienced multiple miscarriages and they've all been very, very early, and to the point where I didn't know I was pregnant. So I mean, my heart goes out to the women who do want to have babies. Like it's heartbreaking, even if you're not planning, to know that you've experienced a loss. And, my heart goes out to those women, and I hope that, soon we can find a solution to especially the infertility aspect of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And maybe in a few years we'll be adopting kids from all over the place. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like everything that you've shared today has been very insightful, and I'm sure that we can talk about it for hours on end because there's just so much more to dig into. But sharing your experience, I'm sure, is going to help a lot more people. I know you've already helped a few, and I hope that this episode helps many, many more to come, and we'll keep an eye out for your book. So what's the plan for the book?
I'm just taking my time. I want to be very thoughtful in the way that I write it, and I want to be educational also, and just sharing my experience. I am planning on having surgery soon.
We kind of touched on that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So it's been 2 years. I've been trying to find the right doctor. I did find a lady in Dallas who is amazing, but she doesn't get covered by insurance, unfortunately, and she's $15,000.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like,
why is healthcare so expensive?
I'm like, all right. Yeah. But I did find a doctor in the TikTok comments. I always keep going back to that. But no, he does. So he does excision surgery. And And he's very passionate about just taking care of women who have endometriosis. So I see him next month on the 28th. So we'll see. To be continued.
Yeah, to be continued.
I'm definitely ready to have this surgery. My legs are numb about 90% of the month.
Oh, no.
And I'm dealing with like just a lot of neuropathy and just nerve problems. So it's time to have another surgery for sure. So I'm excited for that.
Well, we'll have you back for part 2 after you get that
I'll
done.
let you guys know how I feel.
How it went.
Yes.
Well, best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Definitely keep us posted.
Yes.
Where can people find you if they want to just, see your beautiful face and also learn a little bit more about endo and follow your journey?
Yeah, so I've been posting a 30-day journey on the TikTok. So it's just Home with Heidi.
Okay.
I do just a lot of like DIY stuff, but
Lots of gardening. Which
Lots
I'm
of gardening.
So impressed by, because I just can't. I'm trying to be that kind of like housewife, but it's just not working so far.
Well, a lot of my plants have died. So. I'm struggling also, friends. But yeah, so you can find me at Home with Heidi, and I'm doing a 30-day journey of kind of like what my full like month-long menstrual cycle looks like, and kind of how, because I can only work out during certain times of the month. So right now I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lift heavy. I'm going to get all my gains in. Yeah. And then like yoga certain times of the month. So I'm just sharing that there to hopefully help and encourage women, because I know that this can be so overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really can. And it feels just exhausting to try to like figure all of this out. So if I can add just a little bit of comfort and peace to women dealing with endometriosis, that makes me feel warm on the inside. So
yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Having me. This was
I would love to have you again, and I'm sure again, like, you're going to help so many people. So it was lovely having you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with more.
Awesome.
Bye.